Okay, so Jesus was arrested, betrayed by Judas, and then he was put on trial by the high priest Caiaphas and the Sanhedrin, the ruling council of the Jews. And things weren't going so well, so Caiaphas just finally asked, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed?" And uh, Christ basically said that he was, in one way or another, and was charged with blasphemy, which it would have been, except that he really is the Son of the Blessed, and he really is the Christ. So he was telling the truth. Pause here and finish writing this. Okay, the Jews wanted him to be condemned to death. Well, they condemned him to death, but they couldn't fulfill that sentence because they weren't allowed to have the death penalty enforced. Only Roman officials could. So they took him to Pilate. And Pilate knew that Jesus was innocent. He questioned him and found him innocent. But he was afraid of the crowd. He was afraid of what it would do if he didn't find him guilty. And then he heard about Herod being in town, and that since Herod was the king of the Jews, he decided to send him to Herod and try to get out of having to pass a sentence. Unfortunately, Herod didn't care for Jesus too much. He found him rather boring and didn't do anything with him and sent him back to Pilate. Pause here. So then Pilate tried to release Jesus to the Jews based on a Passover tradition of freeing a prisoner. But instead, they chose Barabbas. Barabbas was basically a terrorist of the time. He was probably the military leader that they hoped the Christ would be, thinking that the Christ would be, the Messiah would be freeing them from Roman oppression. Of course, Barabbas was never successful in overthrowing Roman rule. Pause here. So, with that failing, Pilate decided to send Jesus to be scourged, hoping that it would satisfy the Jews. Now, scourging is not the same as whipping. Whipping's horrible in itself, and it comes with the term 40 lashes, and a whipping will leave stripes on your back and produce welts and cuts, and it would be very painful. Scourging is something a little different. It does use the whip, but there are prongs or hooks or sharp things at the end of the whip that tear into the flesh. So when the whip hits them and is brought back, it tears chunks of the flesh away. It doesn't just leave a mark. It's very horrible and painful. And many people would die just from the scourging. But Jesus did not. He was beaten and bloodied, but it wasn't enough for the Jews. They still shouted for his crucifixion. Pause here. Pilate still feared the crowd, and he had political desires, so he didn't want the emperor to think that he couldn't handle this situation in Jerusalem. And instead of doing what was right, he consented to the rule of the mob and sentenced Jesus to crucifixion. But he blamed the Jews for Jesus' death. He washed his hands of the matter, thinking that somehow that dispensed him of any responsibility for it, which of course is not true. When you know something wrong is happening, you should do something to stop it, or at the very least, don't take part in it. Okay, pause here. Pilate did have the charges against Jesus posted on the cross, which was typical in the day. People were curious why people were being crucified, and it was good to show it to dissuade others of committing the crime. And the charges he put were the King of the Jews, because that's what the Jewish leaders said to Herod when they brought him to him. And the Jewish leaders did not like that label because, ironically, Jesus actually is the King of the Jews. He's the King of Kings. Pause here. Now Judas had betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, but he regretted it when he realized that his actions were wrong and that Jesus was going to be crucified and was condemned to death. And he tried to give the silver back and threw it into the temple. So he did repent, but he fell into despair, not realizing that Jesus would have forgiven him even from the cross. He thought he committed something unforgivable, and ultimately killed himself out of that despair. So he committed one sin which resulted in another. Pause here. Now Peter denied Jesus 3 times and was also devastated by his actions when he realized what he had done. But he did not despair. And so he did have a chance for forgiveness from Christ. And he got it. Pause here.